Hi folks, today I'm going to give you an overview of how to get into Cambridge or Oxford for economics. It's going to be a very broad-based video going into kind of high level, what you can do for essay competitions, reading, preparation for the various components of the assessments, and so on. And this is going to be targeted at aspiring year 12s because I'll talk about things like what subject should you do, should you do an EPQ and so on. However, if you're later or earlier in your admissions process, feel free to watch it anyway. It should still be useful. This is just a brief summary of what this video is going to go into. So it's going to be going into basically what you should be doing from the start of year 12. And it'll be doing that at quite a high level. So note that this will just be a summary. Please do have a look at my other YouTube videos, which will go into more detail than this. And also have a look at my Patron, which is a page where I'll be uploading about between 50 and 100 of this sort of video, going into kind of a quite high level of detail on each topic. Right, so just playing in, answering a first common question, which is what A-levels should you do? So first of all, should you do 4? My answer would be absolutely yes. If your school offers doing 4 A-levels, do 4 A-levels, because in my personal opinion, and having talked to admissions tutors, kind of such as my supervisors, the consensus is, whilst it's not necessary to do 4, if you can't handle doing 4 A-levels, you won't be able to handle the workload at Cambridge. So if you don't do 4, then it kind of immediately puts you at a disadvantage. And also, if you can't handle doing 4, it should be a bit of a message to yourself that maybe Cambridge might not be for you. Then what subject? Definitely maths. If economics is offered, you really ought to do economics. It's not compulsory just because the course is built from the ground up. They don't require any knowledge from A-level economics. However, I think if you are an aspiring Cambridge economist, then it should be a fairly easy A-level for you. And it's also nice to just get that little head start. Then further maths, if it's Cambridge economics, and this is pretty much compulsory, you can get away with just doing it for the first year, but again, you can get away with it. I say that because I know a couple of people out of my cohort of 140 that only did it in first year, but again, that's putting yourself at a bit of an unnecessary disadvantage. Now, you can then do one other. There's a much more broad range of subjects you can do for this. A lot of people I know do physics just because most economists at Cambridge are quite kind of technical focused. However, you can also do a humanity. Both are kind of valid, both bring useful skill sets. Then next question is, how do you do well in subjects? And now my method for doing this is what I've pictured below. Essentially, I took every test seriously. Every single little test, no matter how big it is, I took seriously. And the way I did this was I had an Excel spreadsheet where I wrote the subject, the topic, the date, and my score, and then grade that red, amber, green. And I just tried to get a streak of as many greens as possible. And this, I think, was really beneficial because it meant I really focused on every little test. It meant that I got good predicted grades. It meant that my teachers had a good opinion of me for my reference. It meant that I built up a really good relationship with my teacher. Then finally, it is worthwhile communicating with your teachers, making sure that they know that you're aiming for Cambridge or Oxford economics, so that they kind of have those expectations of you and can tell you if you're not meeting those expectations. Right, then third question is, should I do an EPQ? Now, there are pros and cons to it. The pros are develops research skills, it does develop your interest. I mean, obviously, if it's to do with economics, it's probably not worthwhile doing if you're doing something completely unrelated to economics. It gives you an area of specialist knowledge. So I did one and it was on the EU emissions trading scheme. And also it helps you build up a relationship with your teacher. But if you can get your economics teacher to be your supervisor for that, then it builds up a bit of a relationship with them. Now, the cons of this is it's time intensive, right? In the time that you could do an EPQ, a 5,000 word EPQ, you could probably do 3 or 4 essay competitions, each of them being 2,000 words. Now, the reason for this is because the EPQ, you do have to waste a fair amount of time doing admin. And in fact, the way to do well in an EPQ is to spend loads of your time doing admin, like making a plan for how to research it and so on. And therefore, not all the time is spent learning things that are relevant to economics. And secondly, it's also just not a game changer. You don't. It's not like all of a sudden a tick in a box. I really can't imagine that they look at someone and say, okay, they've done an EPQ, let's let them in. So I wouldn't say as a qualification it's a major game changer in the same way that doing 4 A-levels is. Right, now I'm going to briefly talk about admissions requirements in order of importance, and then I'll go on to give you a little bit of advice for how to prepare for, first of all, how to prepare for all of them as a holistic bundle, and then how to prepare for individual ones. So, most important, I would say, are the admissions assessments. That's the TMUA for Cambridge, TSA for Oxford. Then you've got the interview. Below that's the SAQ, that's the supplementary answer questionnaire. That's like a mini personal statement of about a paragraph long that you can send just to Cambridge. Then below that, predicted grades. I only put that quite low because almost everyone who applies has straight A stars. You can apply without straight A stars, but that means that they're not that important, because if you ran a regression of getting in on predicted grades, the correlation will be quite weak because almost everyone who applies has straight A stars. It's not like it's a big discriminating factor. However, it is quite important to try and get up there. Then written work, I know that Cambridge requests this, not sure about Oxford. References below that because they know that that's kind of going to be always positive. And then probably below that's the personal statement. But they're all still important elements. Now, quickly talking about general prep. This is stuff that hits many birds with one stone, right? So reading, essay competitions, courses making up the 3 main pillars of this. And the reason why it hits many birds with one stone is because doing this sort of thing impresses your teacher, so should improve your reference, provides you with material for your personal statement, provides you with material for your SAQ, and will give you kind of little areas of expertise for your interview. Right, so going into the first of those, reading. I'd say that there's 3 main categories of reading. There's pop econ, deep econ, and textbooks. Now, pop econ's what it sounds like pop music, popular econ. It's the sort of stuff that your parents might read on the beach for fun. And it's not the sort of thing that you want to include in your personal statement because it doesn't show that you're going beyond the kind of surface level. So it's a book like Freakonomics and so on. The Undercover Economist being another. Now, it has a time and a place. It's a really enjoyable form of economics to read. So feel free to read loads of it because it will give you a good grounding. But do it probably with the idea of finding out what you're really enjoying to then delve deeper into it. Then deeper econ, that's something like The Price of Inequality or Capital in the 21st Century, so where it's just a bit more technical and not the sort of thing that someone would just pick up to read on holiday. Then textbooks, you're not going to be able to read many of these, but if you were to read a textbook, something like Intermediate Microeconomics by Varian is really good. Now, just wanted to mention that I have specific videos for this talking about exactly the sort of reading I'd recommend and what reading I've done on my Patron. So please do have a look at that. It will be linked at the bottom of this video. Then, moving on to essay competitions. Just wanted to answer a few questions based off these. Do you need to win? Absolutely not. I didn't win anything. Don't expect to win anything. You're competing against loads of people. Winning really is just a bonus. Why are they beneficial? Because I did about maybe 6 or 7 essay competitions between the start of year 12 and kind of October of year 13. And it really does give you a kind of area of expertise that you can talk about in your personal statement and in your interview, and it impresses your teacher. How many to enter? I'd say as soon as possible. The sooner you start, the better. I entered my first one in November of year 12, then I entered one in January, then one in February, and then a few over summer. So the more the better, but kind of one or two would do most of the job, but 6 or 7 would be brilliant. Then again, I've got specific videos on what essay competitions I'd recommend and how to get started on them. So again, please do check that out. Then courses, I would recommend for the platform going to something like US universities. That's not a platform in itself, just a university like Yale. They have loads of free courses which are brilliant. Also look at Coursera and Khan Academy. Avoid the likes of FutureLearn, and focus on more quantitative courses. So for example, game theory, microeconomics, maths and statistics. And again, I've got specific videos going into these. I'm trying to keep this high level, so it's a nice short video. Right, now admissions assessment. How to get started. For the TMUA, what you want to do is you want to find a list of relevant exams which are similar to the TMUA, so just get you started. All the old ECAAs have similar math sections to the TMUAs. You want to make a spreadsheet and then work through. And really, the sooner you start doing that, the better. I wouldn't start kind of going out really hard. Save most of the past TMUAs for the 2 months before the TMUA, but maybe do an exam a week, or maybe half an exam a week for the months leading up to that period, so that then you're not kind of cramming it in. And where to find resources, just do past papers. Make sure you're learning from your mistakes each time you're confused by something. Make sure you fully understand where you're going wrong. And then perhaps make notes on that. And again, in my Patreon, I've got a set of kind of about 12, 13 videos at the moment where I'm going to be going through all of these bits of advice separately. So I go through where to find relevant resources. I've got a plan for that. Talk about common question types and so on. Then, how to work on your interview. What I would recommend is once you've done all the courses, reading, and essay competitions, once you've done that, then what you could do is you could find practice interview questions and practice them with a friend. That's what I did. If you can find someone who's applying for Cambridge Economics or Oxford Economics with you, that's really brilliant. And in terms of finding practice interview questions, I'm going to have a few free ones on my YouTube, so have a look at them. And then I've got loads and loads, maybe about 50 on my Patreon. If you'd rather find them elsewhere, then just kind of read the news, think about questions that could arise from it, look for maths problems, and so on. If you want specific practice, so for example, mock interview, do have a look at my website, which will also be linked below. Then for the personal statement / SAQ, when would I get started with this? I wouldn't really start thinking about this until August time at very earliest. I started mine in September. I had an internal deadline with school in the middle of September, so I only had 2 weeks to do it, which was a bit of a rush. I'd probably avoid that. But yeah, no earlier really than early August, because otherwise you won't necessarily finish everything you want to put in it. Then how to get started: write a list of everything impressive you've done, all the impressive books you've read, all the impressive competitions and courses you've done. Then think, okay, what's a theme that might go through this? I don't know, something like development or inequality. It doesn't have to perfectly link to each one, but try and get something that links through most of them. Then write a paragraph for each one. Say something like, by doing X, I came across this idea. This is what I thought about this idea. This is what other people thought about this idea. And this was the conclusion I came to. and then do that for each of those, then link them together so you can see a progression of your ideas. That's how I'd get started. But again, I've got far more detailed videos on each of these. And also on my YouTube, I have a video going over my personal statement, so you'll see how I link those together. Then finally, you've heard a little bit about my Patron, but essentially over the previous few months and the next few months, I'm uploading shed loads more videos like this, which should be really, really helpful. So please do check that out. Then also I do tutoring for this, so have a look at my website and get in contact if that's something you'd be interested in.